In this video tutorial, we're going to show you the GEO-Dies that are capable of making two patterns. Dies number 5, 7, and 8 are all capable of making two different patterns. The way we do this is we intentionally designed a die that has, in this case this is the number 8, we have 6 sets of slits to create flaps, and there's some space in between. If we run this die through with our paper, we'll get this design after we folded the flaps. If we, after we make the first cut, the first pass, if we rotate that paper one set of points here that are on the outside, such that the previous slits line up in between these slits, then we get another set of 6 slits that will allow us to make this pattern. Now we'll get into the details here in a minute and we'll show you an example. Here's one of our metallic stripes papers that has been run through the number 8 die once. And you can see those slits there. Now when we fold our large flap over, you'll notice that the large flap folds over and it's going to tuck under the previous small flap, just like that. So when you're folding over the ones that we've run through twice, if we go back to this one here, this one's already been folded, but you'll notice that when we fold one over, it's skipping one flap and tucking under the next flap, like so. Here's the number 5 die that has been run through one time, and in case we haven't mentioned in the previous tutorial, each die has some holes in the back, and when you have a piece of paper that's kind of stuck in the die like this, just take a pin, push it through one of those holes, and that'll get the paper out far enough that you can grab it and then pull it out away from the die. So, notice we have, in this particular case, we've got 24 outside points, we've got 12 sets of slits on the inside. So what we're going to do is we're going to reposition this. This is the way it would have come out. We're going to reposition it one set of points on the outside. So we now have the previously cut slits positioned in between the blades. Now I like to take a couple small pieces of removable tape and just hold these in place in the die. I do this because if you just lay it in there static, you can move it when you go put your plates back into the machine here. After you have that tape in place, then place that on a piece of scrap paper. Tape that down. That holds everything in place for you so it doesn't move on you. Put your other plate on top and then run it through for the second pass. Let's get that all moved out of the way. So now if you look in here closely, you can see now that we have 24 sets of those slits. Separate my paper from the die, and then we can fold each one of those flaps over. Now I'm going to do that with one of the other dies here that I have multiple samples of. So here's the number 5 die with both designs cut. If you run it through one pass, you'll just fold each one of the flaps over, the large flaps. Then as always, use a roller creaser to get your flaps rolled down. We do this because if you use a bone folder, you now have paper going 2 directions. You could damage one of them. But notice how each one of the flaps now tucks under the previous small flap. Now when we run it through 2 times, getting twice as many flaps, you follow the same procedure to get your flaps folded. Under the big flap, over the little flap, again with the roller. Now, in this case, since we've got twice as many flaps, each flap is going to cross over, and I'll try to show you this. This flap is coming from here, it's crossing over this flap and tucking under the next one. So you're skipping over a flap and then tucking. Like so. And then you get your two different designs. One more thing I want to show you. On the two pattern dies, there is actually a third design you can get out of each one of those. It's just a subtle difference between them. On the table here we have the die with the one pass method and the two pass method as I have shown earlier. But if you look closely at these two, there is a slight difference. With this one, I did as I showed you before with the number 5, I folded the flap over one of the small flaps and under the next small flap. This one is a little trickier. I've actually, and I'm going to have to take a couple of them apart here so I can show you this. For this pattern, instead of going over top of the small flap, the first small flap and then under the next one, we're actually going to go underneath the first flap and over top of the next one. So underneath and over top of the next one. So if you look at those real close, you can kind of see a little difference. You'll see more of the back color on this one and more of the front color on this one. We'll just put those on the screen there for you for a little bit so you can look at them up close. One more thing that I would like to bring up. Depending on whether or not you have your paper placed this way on the die when you cut or this way when you run it through the machine, determines what direction the flap arrows are pointing. I, being right-handed, I prefer to have my flaps pointing in a counterclockwise direction. It just makes it easier for me to hold the paper, slip the folding aid under on the near side of the paper, and just work my way around like this. Now, if you're left-handed, it might be easier for you if you were to have one where the flaps were cut the other direction. I'm not left-handed, but I'll try to do it left-handed here to demonstrate for you. So in this case, the flaps are going in a clockwise direction, so I'll slip the folding aid under this way, fold it over, go to the next one, fold it over, and so forth. Now try either way, just whatever is most comfortable for you. But just remember, if you want the flaps to be in the counterclockwise direction, then you're normally going to put the paper pretty side toward the die. Now there is one die that's opposite of that, and that's number 3. But just experiment with those and do whichever one feels most comfortable for you. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and give the 2 pattern dies a try, and watch our website for more to come.